What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to have a little bit of a look at a weird winning Pokemon TCG deck. A deck which I'm willing to bet most of you did not see coming. I really didn't see coming. But we're at this stage now where we've got a bunch of gym battles going over in Japan. And there's a lot of the familiar decks winning that we're all expecting to see. And then there's some weirder stuff. So let's take a look at the Garbodor from Paradox Rift. And also there is one card in this deck which might end up being a little bit of a problem. We'll get there in a minute. So what have we got then from Garbodor? Well, we've got Chuck. And yes, I'm using the illustration rare here because it's phenomenal. Discard any number of Pokemon tool cards from your hand. This attack does 50 damage for each card discarded in this way. So the theory here is quite simple. You just go ahead, get a bunch of tools in your hand, discard them all, do big damage. It sounds very simple on the face of it, but we've all had those questions of, well, hang on a second, how are we getting the tools back? And how are we doing this consistently getting enough KOs? And by the way, yes, Garbodor does have a second attack. Free energy, 80 damage plus poison. Firstly, it's terrible. But secondly, we're only playing 5 basic energy in this deck. So don't think this is ever actually going to work. This is full on. I'm playing a stage 1. I'm attacking for a single energy, which for me personally, that is how I've always liked playing the Pokemon TCG. And I am trying to just get enough KOs to go and finish out the game. If this was a slam dunk, home run, best Pokemon in the format, we would be seeing it popping up in a lot of tournaments right now doing very well. It's not. So what's different here and how can we make it work? Well, in terms of support Pokemon, we've basically got like the perfect line of support. Firstly, we've got Snorlax, specifically the Snorlax that came around in 151. Because this is a Snorlax that likes its leftovers. It's got an ability whereby once during your turn, you can grab 2 leftovers from your discard pile and whack them into your hand. Now, if this works perfectly, that's 4 tools a turn. You never attach leftovers. You just leave Snorlax sitting on your bench. You recover 4 of these a turn. And off you go. It's perfect. And that's 200 damage a turn. Now, 200 damage isn't really enough. 250 free, occasionally 350. But that will get you started. And then we can roll from there. Also, as a side note, we're not there yet, but I do need to mention, there was that treasure hunting gadget, which I showed you the other day. It's a new ace spec, which is coming around in Terrestrial Festival in Japan, presumably Prismatic Evolutions over here. It's not legal yet, we're playing Unfair Stamp, but I am telling you that when that becomes legal, if you want to play this deck, I mean, surely that's got to be your ace spec of choice, right? That's got to be the one you go for. As it is, you're playing a stage 1 deck, so it's single prize, Unfair Stamp, your opponent takes a KO, you put them down to a 2-card hand, buy some time, jobs are good 'un. We're playing Bibarel as a draw engine here because you need to have a draw engine. This deck does not naturally have a draw engine. And where you don't naturally have a draw engine, that's where Bibarel comes in. Although in the same way I just talked about Unfair Stamp, obviously we're also playing Fezandipity here. Because if you have a Pokemon KO'd, then you get to draw 3 cards next turn. Like, perfect. You don't really want a stage 2 sitting on your bench, truth be told. But it's draw. And that combined with Bibarel, and obviously you use Bibarel to draw until you got 5 cards in hand. Then you use this to go up to 8. So, you know, if your opponent Ionos you to 1 and takes a KO, you draw 8 cards. Or you end up with 8 cards, I should say. You can even draw more if you can empty your hand nicely. But the point is, great card. Love this card. Big fan. So, what else do we have here? Pecharunt. I was filling up my binder of Night Wanderer yesterday, the Japanese set. The only EX I didn't pull from that set. Very annoying. Because outside of Fezandipity, it's the best EX in the set. It's got the ability Subjugating Chains. Once during your turn, you may switch one of your bench Darkness Pokemon with your active Pokemon. If you do, the new active is now poisoned. It's just infinite switching, which is perfect. One thing that confuses me though, and I gotta bring this up, why is there no Binding Mochi in this list? You're playing a deck that wants to play an absurd amount of tools. Binding Mochi does an extra 40 damage if you're poisoned, and you're playing Pecharunt to switch you in the active, which will poison you. Why is this deck not playing Binding Mochi? The answer basically is you need to play 4 leftovers for Snorlax, and then you haven't got a huge amount of room for other tools, but I desperately want it here. I want Binding Mochi in this deck. If I play this deck, I'm probably going for Binding Mochi. But don't sleep on Pecharunt's attack. 2 energy, 60 damage for each prize card your opponent's taken. It's a little bit awkward in terms of getting the 2 energy on, but we do play 1 EXP share here. Yes, that is a tool. And you can either stash an energy on a turn where you don't have a Garbodor knocked out, or use EXP share here, and then you can actually use this as a legit attacker in the late game where you're not relying on tools, and having an attacker where you don't need to take a bunch of tools is great, because then it gives you more time to get your tools for your next Garbodor attack, unless of course you're just winning the game. Or if you're just out of tools and 200 isn't enough for your 4 leftovers, or you don't have Snorlax or whatever, Pecharunt will have your back here. As will Blood Moon Ursaluna. It's got an ability which reduces its attack cost by 1 for each prize card your opponent's taken. So when your opponent's taken 4 prizes, it's a single energy attacker, 5 and it's actually free, and then you get to do 240. And both Pecharunt, presumably with the XP share, and Blood Moon Ursaluna give you another option. They give you something that you can do here where you're not desperate for tools, and that means that you can take a turn off, build up a Garbodor for next turn, or just attack when you're out of tools. They're very important in that regard. Excellent. So what tools are we playing here? Obviously, we're playing leftovers. We have to play 4 leftovers. Leftovers plus Snorlax is just too good, frankly. We're playing EXP share, as I explained a minute ago, can be very good. We're playing a rescue board, reduces retreat cost by 1. But if your HP is 30 or less, it has no retreat cost. One thing you can do here is use this to basically put something like Pheasant Dipty in the active, and oh no, it's with Pecharunt, and oh no, it's poisoned, but that's okay, because you just immediately use Rescue Board to retreat it, and then there's no real downside here. So that's one thing that we can do here that will actually work very nicely, is just use Rescue Board to essentially give yourself a free switch with absolutely no downside. And then we've got a bunch of TMs. We've got Technical Machine Evolution to go and get your stage 1s out, which you will need, both Bibarel and Garbodor. We've got Technical Machine Devolution to devolve each of your opponent's Pokemon if you've done a bunch of damage but not quite been able to KO them. And we've got Technical Machine Turbo Energize to just go and get 2 energy onto the board. Can be good in the early game if you're not able to attack, but you can, get an energy on a couple of Trubbish, or set up a Pecharunt for later in the game, or whatever it might be. Now, in terms of other cards here that we need to bring your attention to, obviously Arven is great here, because it searches you an item card and a tool, and we actually do play Energy Search in this deck, because you're playing Arven, and Arven can't search for an energy, but it can search for an item, so being able to go and get that is good. Counter Catcher becomes a very nice option, because you'll often give up the first prize while you're getting set up, so the combination of Counter Catcher and Unfair Stamper, basically the deck's way of just being like, yep, it's not always going to be the fastest start. Let's play cards to get around that. Town Store lets you search your deck for a Pokemon tool. If you've got a tool in the deck, assuming, then basically this and 2 Snorlax out will give you 5 tools a turn. That's 250 damage before you've gone and drawn and searched and any of that stuff. It is potentially very, very good. Only 1 in here, presumably for space. This is a deck that gets a little bit greedy. So for that reason, Yeah, you kind of have to do that. And then we've got a very interesting card, just as a single. But we do have TM Machine. Now, this is a gym promo that we don't have yet, that hopefully at some point we will. But it lets you search for free tools with Technical Machine in their name and put them into your hand. So it's kind of like the Ace spec I told you about earlier, with the gigantic caveat that it only gets Technical Machines, which is one of the reasons, probably the main reason, why we're playing so many Technical Machines. And I go back to my why are we not playing Binding Mochi thing here. Well, we need to play Leftovers for Snorlax. We need to play Technical Machine for, well, TM Machine. And then, yeah, we are really running out of room here. And that is a little bit of a problem. And then, of course, Arven will go and get TM Machine. TM Machine will get you free tools. In addition to Snorlax, that should give you 7 tools in one turn, which is 350, which is the maximum amount of damage you will ever need to do. Here's a deck list as a whole, and you can see where we're going here. I love this deck. And the reason I love it is, it's basically gone, right, what are the problems? My problems are getting enough tools every turn. That's where Snorlax and TM Machine and Town Store come in. My problem is finishing off the game at the end when I'm really running low on tools, and that's where Blood Moon Ursaluna and Pecharunt come in. My problem is draw. That's where Bibarel and Fezandipti come in. My problem is if I get KO'd early and I can't get setting up, that's where Countercatcher and Unfair Stamp come in. I adore this deck. And I do think that essentially, you know, this went and won a tournament over in Satire, over in Japan, and it's just fun. And I'm not sure if it's going to be a full-on top-tier deck or anything like that, but I absolutely am telling you that there is a lot of potential here. This deck is a lot better than people are giving it credit for, and it feels like some of the new tricks we've got in the last couple of sets are looking very nice. Yes, it is a pain that we don't have TM Machine over here yet. It's also a little bit of a pain that this deck is a lot better with TM Machine, and that's a gym promo. Things could get awkward. For now, I want to know what you think about this deck, whether you think it's legit. I want to know anything you want to tell me, so let me know in the comment section. Good us, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @LeWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. And get shout-outs on the channel like the lovely Chelsea Rose, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.